Greetings and salutations, and so forth. Welcome to No Platitudes. My name is Peter Lundholm. I'm going to keep the intro pretty short. This was a really kind of a touchstone moment in my life, I think. My guest today is Gia Caroline Eppolito. She was a vendor at Woodstock 99. And when you hear Woodstock 99, I'm sure you shudder the way I do. And I already did. But once I heard Gia's story, it goes kind of beyond shuddering, actually. She's so wonderful. She was such a great speaker. You'll notice there's some silence in the course of this episode because the magnitude of what she was telling me, I mean, it just knocked me on my ass. I don't know how else to put it. So we'll get right to it. Here is my conversation with Gia Caroline Eppolito about her experience at Woodstock 99. Anything else before we kick it off?
No, I'm good. I'm really good, actually.
Good.
Some of those there, and I'm good.
You being good is priority number one.
Thank you. Thanks.
I guess what I always, when I first heard that you were there.
Yeah.
I guess I kind of want to contextualize for anybody who's listening that doesn't know you or know this thing, which I think will be hopefully as many people as possible, because I want, people who aren't in the know to be in the know.
Right.
You were somebody who was involved with like vending at concerts and stuff before the Woodstock thing, right? Like you had done plenty of this. You were in that industry. I was
on Dead Tour. I went on Lollapalooza tour in '97. I was with Snoop Dogg and Korn. Who else was on that? I'm trying to think. Devo.
Wow.
Yeah, I did like tour,
Yeah.
And then I did big giant shows too. Like I used to do Jazz Fest. Jazz Fest was more of I call that guerrilla vending, where I didn't have a spot. But then I do Memphis in May, which was really big in Tom Lee Park. And there'd be big names there like ZZ Top, Allman Brothers, Otis Rush,
Wow.
John Kaki. That's where I met John Kaki because I was,
Yeah.
And then who else? So I used to do the big concerts. I was always, I loved it because I could travel in the summer. I worked for a family business. And when I discovered, I've always loved music. So Grateful Dead was one of my, kind of how I got started, because I liked that idea of being with the people and hair wrapping or selling beautiful things.
And that's the original guerrilla vending, right? Because it's not like the Dead had any system in place to sign people up to vend. It was to get to the next show. It was whatever your little hustle was.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
So that's how I got started. And then, I did like a lot of the Chicago festivals, the big ones down in the city. Any of like John Barry, he has the Star events now, but they used to be run by somebody else. But I met John through Uncle John's band, and then he took over, and I did all those shows. And that's how I met Blotto. With Kathy Richardson. Like I would be like by those stages, I'm like, God, these guys are great, and this is like in '95, I'm like, this band is awesome, yeah.
And you wound up running like their merch and everything, right? You became like their vendor, basically, right?
I got asked in 1999. Mark Hague joined Mr. Blotto in 1999, and he played in a band called Uncle John's Band prior to that, and other bands that he was in. Hack and Wheeze, all that like that. But Mark and I became really good friends throughout that, that time. And when he joined Mr. Blotto, he said, "I want to bring you with," because I was selling T-shirts for and Dark Star too. I was also hanging with those guys, so I got to do that. I got to do the Uncle John's. That's kind of how I got my spot in like working with the bands, and then Mark brought me to Mr. Blotto, and I was introduced to Paul and Mike, and the next thing you know, they're like, you're in. And that was right before, get this, that was in May of 1999. And
shit.
I'm like, well, I'm going to Woodstock in August, so I'm not going to be, I'm going to be busy for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm all really, oh no, it was in July. But, because it was July 23rd through.
Right.
But that's when I was asked to work for them. And that would have been in May of 1999.
Wow.
Yeah.
I guess there couldn't be a better setup for us to get to it. I guess I should also mention we are recording this on what was 24 years ago, the last day of Woodstock 99.
It was actually, Woodstock 99 was, I have my credentials
Oh, yeah, she's wearing her credentials right
23rd through the 25th.
now. Okay.
So today being the 26th was the day, right? Today's the 26th?
My computer says the 25th, but I don't necessarily defer.
Wait. Am I wrong? Wait, let me check it out. It is the 25th, so it was the last day. So this would have been tonight was the night that it went down. It went up in flames.
Okay, so
This is the day.
this is the day.
This is it.
It's crazy. That's so
Like
cosmic
D-Day.
because I've been wanting to do this with you before I even met you. I was so fascinated by things you were posting about it in the time after the documentaries came out. There was a couple of them, I think, and there was one major one, and then there were some side ones. And I remember it. I was 11 years old, but I remember the chaos and that it became this whole thing. But it sort of, got washed away in a sea of sort of, I don't know. It's just a thing that happened. That's just a thing that happened. But that was like a major, like, cultural shift. I mean, for everybody. So I guess okay. So, and in that documentary, I think Michael Lang explains at one point that there were some forms and some things that vendors had to do to be allowed to do what you had already been doing for years. So how did you first get? So they announce it, and then you figure, I'll vend.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep. Yeah, I found out. So there's a way to, you look at when that first came out, and this is before the advent of Facebook and everything. So you got to think about it. It's like, oh, I got to find the information
Right.
Online, for whatever we were looking at the time. And so I did, and I found out how to apply. I found out how much money it was and what was required, and it was like $6,000. And at the time, in 1999, that's a lot of money. But no, you're there. You're vending for 24 hours. You're vending basically for 72 hours. And you also get the opportunity to do the pre-party, because there's a pre-party, and that was on the 23rd. So you get to vend all those hours. And of course, inside of that, you've got your space, and I wanted a bigger space. And then I had a huge crew, because I had to figure, if I have this huge space and I'm vending for 24 hours, 72 hours, I'm going to need a staff during the day and a staff at night.
Right.
So I'm paying not only for that, but for the people, and I had to insure it with their insurance.
What?
Woodstock LLC. And I wish I still had the contract, but it said, I remember signing off. I'm like, where do I sign up? Well, sure. Okay, so $7,200. Okay. How am I going to come up with that? Well, I did, and I paid for it.
And you would pay for that under the presumption that you're going to make so much because it's the biggest event ever, and you'll make that back and then some. And
so it's always the ratio, your amount that you put into something. Usually, you look at it like, if you're going to put $7,000 into something, you figure you're going to make like, 50, 60 grand. Like you're going to triple that. You're going to quadruple. I would look at it like, well, yeah, I'm going to make that more.
So it's worth it to sign up for this thing and pay that amount because
And all any of my suppliers outside of stuff I did for myself wanted to just give me merchandise. Oh no, you're going to Woodstock, so
yeah,
I was given
$70,000
worth of merchandise I was carrying on me when I went into that event.
Whose stuff were you like? What did you have? What was your table or your tables consisted of?
I had a lot of what was called at the time classic imports, which is kind of like Indian, like sari type material. A lot of women's clothing. I had guy stuff too. I had like patchwork pants, gems, like the Guatemalan shorts and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I had
This was not mass-produced T-shirts or anything like that. This was good stuff. This is
really
like-
nice stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what I sold. I had like any of the shows I did, I set up as always like a boutique.
Mhm.
And so it was really pretty. And then I made jewelry, you know, I make my own stuff. So it was kind of like, it kind of augmented that. And it became this big store. And, you know, that was something that I'd been doing for a long time,
Yeah.
like I said. So I was just taking that store and putting it into Rome, New York,
Right.
Woodstock.
And it's Woodstock. It just happens to be Woodstock 30th anniversary.
Yes.
All that.
Right.
And so going into it, you didn't think this was going to be anything that different from what you'd already been doing. You knew it would be bigger. It had the Woodstock name attached to it, but
Right.
you were comfortable with this whole scene.
Yeah, because a lot of the vendors that were doing it were people I knew from tour.
Right.
So I'm thinking if all those guys are doing it, you know, and I'm talking like people that had like, you know, long, you know, haul dead vendors,
Right.
old school, Marty Leffler from Not Fade Away. He's out of Woodstock, New York. There's a lot of people that, you know, that I knew for years and years, and he was one of my neighbors, in fact. So it was like people that I had worked with over the years. We had been alongside each other in, you know, like a communal type situation, selling and
So there was-
being at shows, you know. So it felt like it was familiar,
Yeah.
right? I
A
know
level of
everybody's
comfort there. and-
everybody's doing it. I'm
Yeah.
gonna go too, you
Yeah.
know. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So you sign up for the thing, you go through all the paperwork and everything. I assume, did you get something that said, okay, you're approved, here's where your spot's going to be?
Yes.
And
Yeah. Came in the mail. Yeah, because at the time we didn't really have, you know, remember things weren't really electronic in
Yeah.
1999. So I got like this thing in the mail. I'm like, oh my God, I'm in, you know, and
yeah,
whoa, you know, I'm super excited, and I'm just telling
doing
everybody.
backflips. Yeah, it's exciting.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you gear up for it, you get the product. I assume making the drive. Were you coming from Illinois? Like,
Yeah.
did you drive from Illinois to? So you had done tons of those drives. So even that in itself, nothing crazy.
No
You've
big
been
deal.
on Dead Tour. You've done the road.
No, we had two other cars. It was my van, and then we had actually I'd make that 3 cars because I had a staff of 10,
Okay.
and these were all Chicago people.
Mhm.
And I had to like find some of them because I didn't have that many people that worked for me over the years, and some of the people that had weren't available. So I had to find staff.
Mm-hmm.
And these are people that really hadn't vended before but wanted to go for the experience. I'm
Of
like,
course,
oh, they'll
who
be
wouldn't?
fine. Right.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a big deal, you know. So, yeah.
Okay, so you make the drive, you get out there. I mean, you go into it like you did anything else. First day setup, were you there a day or two ahead? And there's
Mhm.
probably a lot of
Pre-party.
logistics and the pre-party thing. So what did that entail? You were able to vend to the, I guess, was it VIP people that were able to do the pre-party? So you vended at that. You were set up by the time that
Yeah.
started.
I was set up at that time, and so when we got there, we would have got there like a day before, even before that. So I was, you know, to get the lay of the land and all like that. Get your spot. You know, you're in line with 200 other. I knew there was going to be a lot of vendors, so you have to get there. You have to get in. You have to, you know, show your cards. You know who you are. Bring all your people in. Get all your gear in. Find your spot. Which is always a big deal because, you know, it's kind of a, you know, you have to look at the foot traffic. So you have to kind of look at, okay, stage is there. Where am I going? Oh, wait. No, I don't like where I'm at.
So it wasn't a designated, you weren't assigned.
Oh, I was.
Okay.
I was assigned a spot, and I didn't like. And this is a very interesting part of my story because when I got, you know, I want what I want, and I've done this a long time, and I spent a lot of money, and I get there, I'm like, this isn't going to work, you know, and I knew other vendors that were moving, and so and I was way off. You know, there was like a tarmac, and you see that in
Right.
the documentary.
Yeah, is that an Air Force base or
It is a
something?
defunct Air Force
Yeah.
base. So where we were in relation to that, there was like a vending village, and it was almost like a triangle. So I was on one of those triangles, right? And like from where I was, and I ended up staying there, and I'll tell you in a minute, there was a hangar to the left of me, and that's where John Entwistle played, Bootsy Collins.
Oh, wow.
There was some great bands in there. It was like another, you know, place for music. It was near the Ray.
Right.
That was like right there. Yeah, which I you know. But so that whole thing, but when I got there though, I was like, no, this isn't going to work, because I knew some vendors that were kind of getting themselves moved up, and so I ended up flagging down a security guy, and he was on a golf cart, and I get all my people. I'm like, hey guys, I'm going to go check, and I don't want to show like I'm, I'm no, we're going to try to work it out. And I flag this guy down, and we have like a vending coordinator that's actually on site that looks after our area. Her name was Shanti Stone, and that name will always stay with me because it's so Shanti Stone,
Yeah.
Shante, Stone, and she was, probably a little bit older than me, and she was a New Yorker, and I remember, finding her, like, hey, listen, we just got here, and I'm not, this spot really blows, and I'd like to be closer to the tarmac, and well, everybody's got an assigned spot and blah, blah. And I'm arguing, I'm making my case, and I'm probably, 15 minutes, there going back and forth with her. And I'm like, I can see, she says, well, everybody, everything's fair. You're going to get this and that. So I finally, I give up. I get back on the golf cart with the guy. And he says, you're not the only one that's I said, that's, and I was just kind of telling him, and he goes, you don't know what else is going on. And I go, what? He goes, well, half the security, if not all, is going to leave. And I said, why? He said, we have been instructed to take the food and water away from the patrons as they come in. He said, and none of us feel good about that. And this is the security that was there. Like they had been hired, like they were guys that were going to be like an Andy Frayne, like our Chicago Andy Frayne, kind of like that. And he's like, oh, we're all leaving. I said, really? I go, well, what are they going to do? Well, they're hiring people off the street right now. They're trying to find dudes, they're going to slap a Peace Patrol yellow jacket on and pay them $5 an hour. He tells me this on the golf cart as we're going back towards my people. Now, I know I'm hearing all this, right? Mm-hmm. I'm going, oh, shit.
This is the first red flag
this is the
of
first,
the weekend?
First red flag of the weekend, and that's only because I went to go argue about my spot. I was going to try to get that sorted out. So, that's how I found out.
So did that indicate to you that this kind of the situation, which is one of the many situations of the whole thing, but the situation with the price gouging and the, I think they had said that people could bring water bottles, but then they said that they couldn't once they got to the gate or something. So this indicated to you that there was already dark forces at play, for lack of a better term.
Yeah. It was, and he also said to me that accommodations for staff was limited, and he said I think he said there was like 500, there was a lot of them. There was a big, huge crew of guys, and they were coming in at different shifts, and they were bailing. He says, we don't have anywhere to stay. He said, and then we're told we're going to do that. And he's telling me this as we're on the golf cart, and I was floored. I'm thinking, now what? So I didn't tell anybody. I mean, I kept it to myself. Mm-hmm. I had a manager that, who I was my second in command, if you will. His name was Donnie, and he and I talked about it. I said, I don't want to upset the crew and stuff. I'm trying to just let's just play this. We're going to do this. Yeah. He'd worked with me many shows. He knew how to deal. I said, we'll make it work.
Have you ever been in a situation even close to that with staff and security mutiny and
no?
I mean, anything like this to compare it to?
I've never. Oh I did a lot of shows, and I did Woodstock '94 as a patron, which was a blast. And I only went I couldn't do more than 24 hours because it was crazy. But and I knew they didn't have enough security there, but people were much more kind and much more. That was in '94. So I kind of got that was going on there because they lost control of that one, but it didn't go down like this.
Right. What do you credit that to for '94 being a little more mellow? Was it just the nature of it being more anchored to the '69 one as far as the aesthetic of peace and
bands,
harmony and music and
bands? I mean, when you think about it, so when you've got Rage Against the Machine, Limp Bizkit, Korn, I'm trying to think some of the other bands that were heavy raging bands, mad, angry bands.
Kid Rock.
Who was thinking? I mean, when I got on the show, I totally bypassed who was on it. And I remember some vendor friends of mine were like, I'm not going to go on that. That's crazy. I'm like, no, it's going to be great. Look, Sheryl Crow is going to be the Foo Fighters, although my favorite band, and they weren't there. But there was oh, look, Mickey Hart's going to be there, and I'm like, oh, it's going to be okay,
Yeah.
No, those bands were, it was the sign of the times. There was, they say at the beginning of the documentary, and this is very true, in 99, there was a shift, and I think Fight Club came out at the time, and there was a lot of,
Yeah.
there was a lot of that.
Right.
And I think there's something to that, it's just kind of how, society pivots
Yeah.
based on movies or music. Again, you were looking at Korn, Limp Bizkit, and all like
Right.
that. And so, not that that wasn't going on in 94, because it was, but we didn't, in 94, in the bands that I did see there, I did get to see Metallica. I did get to see
Sweet.
Blind Melon. I mean, I got to see some awesome bands,
Yeah.
and I only withstood it for a day because there was nowhere to go to the bathroom and you had to leave. But and we actually went to Bethel to go see what was going on there, because Bethel was near that actual place.
Right.
So, I was feeling like, because I had gone to that as just a patron, I could have ended it, but I opted not to. I just decided, no, I'm just going to go. And I felt like, no, we're going to be okay. So what I credit it to is the bands, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And they said in 94, and it was Michael Lang's production in 94, they underestimated how much it was going to cost, which is why 99 became a money grab. Do you see?
They had to make up the losses from 94.
They actually say it in the documentary.
Holy shit.
They actually say it. And that was actually one of the things that I picked up on last night. Like I said, I took the emotion out of it last night,
Mm-hmm.
and I listened. Because before I'm like, I'm mad
Yeah.
at it. I'm mad at it.
You're mad all over again. Just reliving it.
It is. It's it's post-traumatic stress disorder for sure. I mean,
Yeah.
it has to be, because it was like a war. If people come home affected by something, and it's just in that short amount of time, what happened?
Yeah.
No,
and I said that to you on the phone last night. Most people go their entire lives never even being in the vicinity of 1/3 of how extreme that chaos became. Most
Right.
people never even see that outside of a TV, and even then, I mean, it's mind-boggling. So let's go back to you pick up this red flag on the setup day. You're carrying that with you, but you still have the intention to carry on
right.
as best you can, see how it plays out. And so, what was the first night for the pre-party thing?
It was pretty well attended. I mean, I don't have a huge recollection of that. I think I was more focused on getting set up, and we were selling, but there were people. I mean, there were people coming in. I would say there was like maybe 5,000-6,000 people that were starting like that first night. Like, I could see it,
Mm-hmm.
and we were getting ready, and it was okay. And all that music was right behind us in that one hangar I was talking about. So I felt like we were, okay, that's a consolation. We're near the cool music,
Yeah.
So that's okay.
Yeah.
Taj Mahal's playing all right. So I was good with that. And we were setting up, and there's a lot of work involved in that. And then just kind of getting everybody acclimated to what we're going to be doing, because I had people that hadn't vended.
Mm-hmm.
And they were more or less going to be eyes in my booth, because you got that many people coming around. You got an open air, markets.
Mm-hmm.
People are coming in. You have to be able to see. So that was what that time was, just getting my crew ready. And
Mm-hmm.
I had 10 people, 5 on my team. We called me, I was team A, and Donnie's team was team B. So we had team A to B. Yeah, and we were like, doing huddles, and,
Yeah.
it was like we were just gearing up, and we were just getting excited, and they were talking about, some of my staff, and there was 2 young girls that I talk about in my chapters, and I can't remember their names. I'm sorry, for some reason their names evade me. But they were talking about who they were going to go see, and, part of their reasoning, and part of the reason these people came along was because they wanted to see those bands.
Sure.
So there was that kind of like that, the one hand washes the other. You get to see these bands. Well, I'm going to pay them anyway, but
Yeah.
that's the bonus. Wow,
Yeah,
you get to
course.
see those guys.
Is that not the whole thing of
Yeah.
following, doing the vendor thing, and also being around that music and that thing? It's so beautiful.
Yeah.
And yet, all right. So the pre-party goes well enough. You're establishing a rhythm. You're teaching everybody kind
Yeah.
of. You're figuring out your way. Okay, so day one of the fest proper.
Yeah.
Tell me about it.
Well, I'm already wondering how this is going to go with people not having, getting their water taken away and stuff like that. And again, I actually did tell some of the other vendors who were in we were under like a big circus tent, and I think it was 5 facing one way, 5 facing the other. So there's 10 of us. I think that's how it went, or six, maybe it was 12. And I remember telling them. So I wanted them to know, and these are people I knew, people I would have worked with in the past and stuff. I'm like, hey guys. So we were kind of looking out for that, kind of see how people were. And then the food vending was like almost directly across from us, but a distance. And I was looking, like, we went over there to see what food and water was going to be. And that's when I saw the $4 a bottle of water. And that was the first day. And I kept thinking, holy cow, how can they do this?
God.
Yeah.
And it was like nightmarishly hot, correct?
It was.
And you're on a concrete slab.
We were in like a grassy area, but not really. It was kind of gravelly. Even in the pictures you can see there's like a little bit of grass and stuff like that. But mostly it was like a think of a airplane runway. That was like the midway for people to walk back and forth to the stages, which I think it was like a total of how many miles? Like 2 miles, I think you could walk the whole thing or something like that. It was pretty big.
Yeah, that's
maybe
a lot.
Bigger than that. And so people are coming in, and people are stoked. They're here. They're not maybe thinking right away about the water. And mostly the first day that people come into shows, they're looking to get themselves situated. They're going to go find their place to camp, find their friends, get themselves staked in, get ready to party, So we knew that. They window shop. They come over, hey, that's nice, I'll be back, that kind of thing.
Totally.
So you're just starting to see the folks, and that's, you're getting an idea who's here, what you can expect. And there's hippies, there's, kind of a mixed crew of people coming in, because that's, your audience is huge.
Sure. And diverse selection of bands.
Right.
Very diverse.
Yeah. Yeah. So... yeah.
All right. So day one, you notice the change in prices, but are you noticing people's reactions to it? Whether it's the reactions to their food and stuff being taken away, and then also the wait, now I have to budget for this, or like what was the first you saw of the negative reaction to how things were feeling on that first day?
I don't know that I really picked up on too much of that. I think there was I think because everybody's coming, it's like a big wave. So I wasn't picking up on that yet. Mm-hmm. Like that wasn't starting to hit home, even though I knew in the back of my head, this is going to be a problem,
Yeah.
I wouldn't, pinpoint somebody and go, hey, what do you think about that? I just let it fly.
Right.
I think when it really started to hit was later that day, maybe that evening, and the obviously the next day. But people were just getting ready to come in. There was a huge beer garden. People were over there already. Another thing that was missing, a huge component, was there was nowhere to really, there was no facilities like bathroom, washing up, that type of thing. And we, in fact, I think that first day, I'm going to back up just a minute, just because this is an important part. We know we're going to be there for 5-6 days. I went back out to a grocery store nearby, and I bought us like a ton of water, like, jugs and jugs and jugs of water to wash. I'm like, we're not going to be able to go in that water. Thank God, if you think about it now.
Yeah, you called it.
Because there was no way, because there wasn't really any facilities for us. So I'm like, oh, all right, well, just make do,
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. So there's that. And I think people started to kind of recognize that,
Mm-hmm.
Then, like, there's really no security. That was the other thing. These guys started showing up in these yellow jackets, like the guy on the golf cart told me. You're going to see them. They're going to say Peace Patrol, yellow jackets. And there they are. And they're all kind of walking around, and they're looking, and I'm thinking, this is security? Oh, shit. Mm-hmm.
What was it, just college kid, like local college kids?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
A lot of young kids that were like, they were not, they had radios. They looked official, but they weren't in any way a security.
Right. And also, presumably, didn't understand the scene, didn't understand how these concerts and festivals and things work.
No.
My God.
Nope. Nope.
Okay, so day one, relatively okay. You
Yeah.
notice the lack of facilities.
Yep.
You notice the price gouging. Is that the correct term? Am I using that right?
Yeah.
Okay. And the first night, I mean, same thing. Like, did you trade out at nights? Was that when the team A and team B would switch out?
Yeah.
So did you go see anybody play on night one or anything, or were you pretty much just like, I gotta take a nap?
I was wiped out.
Yeah.
And we stayed like right in where we were, like where we worked was like at the very end of those big big circus tent.
Uh-huh.
I have pictures. We had like a section that was quartered off, and we had our tents in there. Like, so if you had like your own little tent and stuff like that. So I went in there, had my sleeping bag, and I would just go crash, like that first night, because I'd been up.
Yeah.
And there was it's a lot of, there's a lot coming at you. But I've got my ear to the ground. We were told to keep these on at all times, which I did. I slept with it on. And I mean, I knew things I felt okay. I felt safe with my team and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
day one was kind of I know what I did. I did walk around. I did want to see it more.
Yeah.
I went and looked at the fence. I talk about the fence a lot because the fence was I call it the barometer of the show, because you see all these really beautiful, fluffy butterflies and flowers and hearts and everything, peace and love. And that fence was the fence that started to get torn down. And that was kind of how I started to evaluate what was going on, like the next day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Before we get to the next day, this might be a really dumb question, and I apologize in advance. When you are a vendor at an event like that, are you in essence staff in a way, like, or are you still an independent entity? Like, are you considered working for the festival?
No.
Okay.
No, no. You're your own business. I mean, I had my own business at the time, and it's a wrap at the time, and I was contracted under that, so I'm not staff.
Right.
I'm not, really. I have no responsibility other than to my space and my people and making sure it was clean, kept nice. There were certain things that you had to do, and leave the site clean and all. Yeah. So,
Stuff that rules that you already knew.
the
It was
rules,
all vendor
rain or
101.
rain or shine, the event goes on. That type of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So day two.
Yeah.
What? I guess give me the first half of that day.
Day two. So that's when you really started to notice that people were not wearing clothing. Yeah,
that's when that started.
That
Okay.
it was kind of happening the first day, but second day, and there was a merchandise tent to the right of where I was. So if I was looking out to my outside towards tarmac, because I was way back from it, huge giant merchandise tent to the right of me, where they had people spray painting people. And so there was long lines, and people are going in there, and they're coming, they're in clothes and coming out with none. And
these were sanctioned, like artists. It was like an artist alley thing. Okay.
Yeah. They all of a sudden, and then there's just crowds coming in, and I'm seeing that, and I'm like, wow, I'm noticing we're not getting a lot of traffic. I'm starting, I knew that would be the case, but then again, I'm like, maybe it'll pick up because of where I'm at. Remember I said, if you can't see it, you can't buy it. We're way off that tarmac again. That merchandise tent later was the one that you see in the documentary getting pillaged. So it's kind of a good thing where I was. But, yeah. So people you're starting to see a little bit, though. I'm starting to feel a little bit of this, and then the bands are going. You're seeing that this security not really paying much attention. You're seeing a lot of drunk people, people that haven't slept. I mean, you know, which is normal at festival, but they don't, you know, I think I started hearing about the water problem. I felt bad. I had water on me. I gave a couple bottles away. I mean, I didn't have enough, obviously, for 400,000 people, but, you know, and I'm trying to keep my crew okay.
Yeah.
You know, I'm trying to make sure, like, I'm not letting out my concerns because I don't want to upset them, you know. So, and the fence, again, was another indicator. So as I did my little walkthrough later, and I think I took a break, I started to see a little bit of that fence. And people were getting a little upset, $4 a bottle, too much. Don't let corporate greed take away our music. And these are the first things that are starting to go up on the fence.
It was the graffiti first before they started pulling it apart.
Before the nasty words.
Defacing the, okay.
And the words, I mean, the F's, the F-bombs, and the, I mean, and I have photos of that where they just got pissed before they started to tear it down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And to go back, you mentioned, you know, people weren't buying, you weren't sure how things were going to go. Did you see other vendors having great success, or could it be that people who might have had money with them for like, oh, I want to get a shirt and I want to get some stuff, realized that they were going to have to spend that money to stay alive?
I think
hydrated and everything.
So they were making choices.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were making choices. And they were, you know, no, the other vendors weren't doing that well where I was, you know, and there were vendors, like I said, it was like a trade. There were vendors that were doing better. They had better cover, you know, where they were more visible.
Right.
Which again, was the assumption I knew at the very beginning. But I did just say to myself, I'll be okay. We'll make it work. I mean, I was doing okay, and we had people coming back and stuff like that. You know, I develop a rapport with people. I talk to people. You know, I have a great friendly staff. You know, people just, it's like, you know, it's a community, you know. So I would say it was, I kind of knew that it wasn't going to be super great, but I was just going to keep hoping we were going to be okay and just keep moving along. And there's more people coming in, too. This wasn't done. Well, it wasn't done. In fact, they said it was like for 200, there was more than 200,000 people there. There was easily, I mean, my recollection and from what I know, they sold it out even more than, there's like 300,000 people there.
Yeah.
There was, for sure, if not more. Yeah.
God. So oversold.
Yeah. Garbage everywhere. So so that next day the garbage started to accumulate, and you were like, and you could see.
Oh, sorry. I don't know. I'm apologizing to the mic cord, I guess.
That's right.
Sorry to cut you off. What is the thing about the garbage cans that people started rolling them down the the takeoff?
I don't know that I saw that. They started to use the garbage cans as drums. There was a drum.
That's somehow worse.
That was worse because not very good. I can't stand it when people don't know what they're doing when they're drumming. and I used to do drum circles, but I mean, and so I'm that kind of started this. I call it the incessant drumming because there was like you started to hear, and that was in the background. I don't know that I saw them rolling garbage cans.
Okay.
I just know that there was garbage everywhere, and I was wondering, where's the fucking garbage crew? Where, you know, there was nobody here to clean it up. You know, we had garbage cans by us, and we were kind of picking up around us and stuff like that. But we were all, again, kind of minding our own, but I'm looking out. You know, I'm watching this. It's like a movie, and I'm watching. I'm like, and you could see, like, that next day, how hot, because that's when the heat really hit. And it was like, you know how if you look at a desert and the heat comes up, it's like a mirage?
Yeah.
And I remember looking out thinking, Jesus, you know, this, because you could see it coming off the tarmac.
Right.
Off the midway. I'm like, people are...
And it was like a black top. It was like the hottest possible thing you could be standing on or even near. Yeah.
Yeah. And people are hot, and they're sweaty, and they're drunk, and they're, you know, naked. It was starting to get a little uncomfortable in that regard because of the way guys were starting to get, and you were starting to see some of, like I was starting to see some of that frat boy, you know, mentality, starting to pick up on that. Yeah, you know, and the music is going, and now you've got, when did Korn go on? Was that the first night or second? Whatever the second day bands were, I mean, people were pretty much back and forth, and then of course we had the rave hanger. And then there was just, I don't know. I'm just thinking back to what that day was like. It was almost like you kind of knew something wasn't right, like you were starting to pick up,
Yeah.
and it was clear that there was something uncomfortable. And I know, and I mean, I had to start thinking about my people. How's this going to be? Where are we going with this?
And so these are like just naked, gregarious dudes
And women.
and women.
Yeah. A lot of that. At first, it was beautiful. At first, I have no trouble with that. It doesn't.
Yeah.
I personally.
Well, that in
wouldn't.
itself is not.
Yeah. Okay. If that's what you choose. And I'd been to other events where that was, people would do so. It's okay. But this was a little bit more uncomfortable. It just was. I started feeling uncomfortable as a woman, while I was there. And I had women working for me who were beautiful, and I started thinking about my girls, and these are women that so you kind of, your community again, and you're just kind of looking out and and then thinking about food, we had to eat, and we had stuff on us, and I would send somebody to go get food from the food vendors. I'm like, oh my God, the burritos were like $12. A pizza slice was $10, I'm like, holy, and I'm not going out there. I'm like in my booth. I don't go out till later. Like I said, I'd wait till, but Donnie would come in about 6:00, and then I'd go walk.
Yeah.
And then I would go look at my fence and my barometer. So, but then when they would go get the food and they'd come back and tell me, I'd be like, Jesus, oh no.
And where was the what was the state of defense on Saturday night when you made the switch?
Oh, it was
the team switch.
It was getting ugly. It was getting ugly. It was starting to come down. There was like parts, they were starting to kind of peel it back. I think in one of my photos here, you might be able to see it, because I took a photo of it midway. Here's actually Saturday night, I believe. And I don't know who's playing there, but that's
Mickey.
the main stage. Maybe it's Mickey. Yeah,
he's on the big screen.
Yeah, that's Mickey, because we wanted to see Mickey. So that was
Yeah.
actually the last night. Mickey was the last night. So, yeah, that's Mickey. You're right. My gosh. Yeah, the language was getting really harsh. Fuck this, fuck that, motherfuckers. They were starting to get really angry.
So kindness kind of was starting to go out the window.
There was no more peace signs. It was this. It was fuck you. Yeah, we're out. We're done. And it was just in the garbage and the garbage and the garbage, and it started to really smell.
Yeah.
And people smelled, and there's nowhere to go. And then there's those the wash up areas. I actually have a photo of that. And this is before we knew anything. And again, I told my people, we've got our own, but you can see. And that's over by the toilets.
Oh my God.
People washing up. Yeah. Right?
This was this was the second day?
That second day. It was probably like earlier in the day, or early in, I went over there just to kind of take a look at what was going on. And people were washing up out there. And we didn't, like I said, we didn't go there. I told them not to. There was, we had some facilities behind us that we took advantage of, like as far as like outhouses and stuff like that were like for vendors. I forget how it all worked, but we did have that.
Okay.
It was like kind of, we just a little bit for us. It was like the only thing we had. But water and stuff like that, I told them not to do it. I said it's probably potable water. Don't touch it. Don't put that in your mouth. Yeah.
God, I can't believe how like perceptive you were to all of this as it was unfolding.
Well, I just didn't feel good about it. It's like it's like it didn't feel right to me, and
Yeah.
but I'm also thinking about my staff, and I'm thinking, I survive things. I'm in an event. If I'm doing if you're camping or something like that, and you have to like just rely upon what you have, or well, you have to bring some clean water or whatever. That's how I looked at it. I'm like, I'm just gonna load us up with what we need. That way we don't have to deal with it. There's too many people going to be over there. There's not enough room for us. We'll just have to just do it like this, guys. Is that cool? You know, it's like, all right, we'll figure it out. That's a, you know,
because you can rough it. You've roughed it before.
Yeah, wet. You bring your wet. You know, you just do it. You know, so and we just did. We just, you know, so I kept them away from it.
Yeah,
I'm glad I did that.
Yeah,
really. Mm-hmm.
It's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you mentioned earlier about the language getting harsher, no more peace signs.
Yeah.
So, the combination of discomfort, excessive prices, and the certain element of fans of certain types of bands. I personally struggle with the blaming of bands in almost every situation you can think of.
Fred Durst.
Except this one.
Mm-hmm.
And if, you know, what happened at Astroworld a couple years ago, there was a big, you know, crowd rush, and it was a similar thing. Emergency services couldn't get in. There were fires. There was craziness going on. And the artist encouraged it. And the person on stage who has the command of all these young people who literally would, if he said, everybody turn around, everyone do a 360, they would do it. Not saying like, hey, stop fucking pushing each other around.
Yeah.
And I know at Woodstock there was a couple people that made little remarks from the stage, everybody cool out, and I know Dexter from Offspring tried to draw attention to, like, just trying to get everybody to stop being so fucking handsy. And I'm trying to think of a way to steer this back to the growing kind of resentment and hostility that was in the air.
Don't forget there's a lot of drugs and alcohol going on too.
Sure,
I mean,
course.
Like more than I have really ever, and I'm no stranger to that, you know, being around people getting high and stuff like that. But there was a lot of really bad stuff. I mean, people were flipping out. There was candy flipping going on.
Right.
You know, I was starting to see some of that, like, nearby. I'm like, uh-oh, better call some, you know, I'm trying to get help for some woman when, you know, they're fishing, they're doing nitrous or whatever, and I'm watching that, and I'm like, oh, she just fell on her face, you know, and I'm going to go help, because I do that, but, man, there wasn't enough people to help. You know, we as vendors are like, okay, I got you, you know, let's put a wet towel on your head, you know.
Right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So partying's ramping up, the anger's ramping up into Saturday night. Were you able to sleep Saturday night?
Not really.
Because was that the rave night?
That was rave night.
Okay.
Yeah,
that was close to where you
was
were
right
vending
by me.
and by where you would have been sleeping, right?
Yeah.
For the love of God.
I didn't go.
Yeah. Did anybody from your crew go?
Yeah. Yeah. Donnie and I switched out for that because he was a big raver, and you know, he liked to do all that and stuff. So I mean, I'd like to once in a while, but a couple of them went.
So it was getting weird and bad, but not so bad that you guys still weren't trying to have some fun, right? Like you were still thinking, like, this could turn around.
We were trying to at least get what we could out of it, enjoy what was there for us. Pardon me, because there was really good music. I mean, the lineup was awesome, without the big, you know, the angry bands. But you know, there was some really good bands, and everybody had like a, you know, wanted to do so. I wanted to see Mickey Hart, you know, of course I did. I wanted to see Sheryl Crow, of course I did. You know, I wanted to see Jewel, Willie Nelson.
Yeah.
You know, I knew who I wanted to see. I didn't get to see Willie. I would have liked to. That was Sunday morning, and that was like a weird morning, but, you know.
Well, let's go there. What? So overnight, I guess, Saturday overnight, couldn't sleep. What are you thinking? I mean, are you comprehending what was going on in the rave thing? Because I know the rave thing got real bad and weird.
I didn't know about everything going on in there. I wasn't aware of it, and I don't know that even the people the couple of my crew, like my manager, my co-manager Donnie, and one of my girls went over there. I don't believe that they told me. They weren't hiding anything from me, but I didn't know to what extent what was going on in there. I didn't know.
Yeah.
I didn't know till quite honestly, maybe I did hear about it. I heard more. It wasn't until I saw the documentary, like I really got it though. I was
Yeah.
like, oh my God.
But they didn't come back from there and say, like, man, that rave was getting pretty
Not that I
over
recollect.
the top. Okay.
No, I think they were just there and they were, they got to see some of it and then they booked.
Yeah.
They
Who was
came
it?
back.
Fat Boy Slim?
Fat Boy
played in
Slim.
it? Yeah.
Yeah.
And they had to escort him out because people were rushing the booth and
they,
stuff?
They had to, and then there was that van that came in,
Yeah.
which I didn't know about that either. So these are things I didn't know. Remember, we don't have phones.
Right.
I had my dad's brick phone. My dad had a brick phone. That was my phone.
Wow.
And that was like, okay, it doesn't work right now. So there's no phone.
Yeah.
There's no phone. So you don't know what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
You don't.
Yeah, and it's so big and there's so much stimuli. Stuff like that could happen somewhere else in the room and you wouldn't know. It's dark, it's wild, you might be a little fucked up, like
Yeah, that's the one thing I was, with the crew too. I said, if you guys want to party and stuff like that, you do it on your time. Make sure you get enough sleep. Don't, wake up.
right.
A couple of them had a little bit of difficulty with that. That's okay. Happens. But, we worked through it. And I myself was like, I got to stay right. I can't be getting, no. There's just like, there was no feeling of like, there was no letting my guard down. And I've been at shows, and I had been at enough shows and done enough shows where I could be like, okay, I can sit back for a little bit.
Yeah.
I never did. It just, there was something that just kind of kept me like, where I was just looking around
Mm-hmm.
and you were feeling it. And actually I started talking with, there were other vendors, and one of them again comes to mind. His name was Marty Loeffler from That Fadeaway Graphics in New York. And we were good friends at the time. And I remember saying, like, are you feeling something here? And I was talking with other vendors that were like in other quarters, because we were, again, this big giant triangle. And I was asking them, hey, you guys good? Yeah, things are well, okay. But there was this underlying, like, we knew something wasn't right.
Mm-hmm.
Like you were starting to get, something's not right here.
Yeah.
And that fence was starting to come down. And it was starting to peel back, and that garbage was getting more, and people were getting more aggressive.
Mm-hmm.
Not with us, not as a vendor. I wouldn't say anybody got aggressive with me, but you saw some stuff, like people were, it was just a different, like the dial had been turned.
Yeah.
And people were starting to just change. They were angry, they were mad, they couldn't eat.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them were hungry. I felt so bad.
Yeah.
You want to help.
Yeah, you're witnessing all of it in real time,
Yeah.
the degeneration of these people's comfort and what was supposed to be a fun thing turning into this kind of weird, hostile, God, the image you're painting is so vivid.
Yeah.
It's like I don't know. So Sunday morning after the rave night.
Willie.
That was Willie.
I could hear him.
Okay.
And he was doing Amazing Grace, and I was like, oh, and I'm just, thank you,
Yeah.
and I'm tired. I'm like, thank you, Willie, thank you. Okay, guys. And we had somebody in our tent, in the vending area, again, it's communal.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody made coffee, and we were coughing and stuff like that, and we were just, okay, last day, we're going to do this. We heard there was a peace vigil later there where they were going to hand out candles. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so we were thinking about that.
And that's an important
That's
point.
a huge
plot
point.
point.
Huge. So we knew about that. We knew about Mickey Hart. He was playing that night. So that was the last night. So that's the photos I got, and that's where I wanted to go.
Yeah.
Sales were getting harder. A couple of my girls, I asked them to go out and just like walk through the crowd and sell. At that point, they wore their credentials. Please just get, I had, bracelets or something like that. Guerrilla event. They knew how to do it. They were fine. They walked. I'm like, we got to make some money. I didn't want to tell them how bad it was because I was like, I got to pay all these people, but I was hurting. I could see the financial problem. And it wasn't because I didn't have nice stuff. It's just people were spending their money on food and drugs or no food and drugs and alcohol.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or nitrous.
More people in that environment would pick those things over the essentials.
They have to.
Yeah.
Yep. Mm-hmm. So that, I'm trying to think what else I can tell you about the Sunday. And I need to, I need to say this. My picture and my whole idea of Woodstock was this, and I say this in my writings. I say, you think of Joni Mitchell. By the time they got to Woodstock, there were 100,000, and that's like what my picture of that. I wanted to see the rolling hills and people on blankets and playing guitars,
Yeah.
and loveliness and dancing and twirling
course.
and food kitchen and there's none of that. And it's like I'm on an Air Force base that's got nothing, with no security. Now remember, no security. So these guys are all of a sudden they're not even around.
Yeah.
They're partying. They're with the crowd.
Mm-hmm.
And you realize it, and I'm like, where's fucking security? Where are these dudes? Especially when there was people falling out, and they were nearby.
Right.
They starting to get really messed up.
Yeah.
So
No medical staff, nobody to help.
No, it was very, and if there was, and so we would try to help people. Like I said, if we saw it, if it was close enough to us, and there were a couple incidents. There was probably more than I can recollect, but you did what you could for them, or you'd find out where they could go, and and by the way, my vending coordinator was nowhere. Shanti, where was she at?
Yeah. When
Where'd
was
she
the
go?
last time you saw her over the weekend?
She didn't come back.
She was there when you guys set up, when you arrived, and then gone.
And then to tell me, no, you can't go there, because I was going to move. So I never saw her again. That guy that was on the golf cart, those guys were all gone. The good security.
Yeah.
There really was nobody of authority. No one. So you start to realize there's no safety net here.
And everybody who's in attendance, and those of you vendors, you're not seeing or hearing Michael Lang doing these kind of sanctimonious press conferences talking about how well it's going, and that the rumors about what you've been describing, that the rumors were out there. I remember Kurt Loder coming up on MTV News at 10 to the hour every hour on MTV, and talking. I think he was covering it, or there was something where MTV was part of a simulcast of certain acts or something. And I remember him talking about the mudsliding and saying something like, I don't know how sanitary that is. And then, sure enough, I hear from you, and I watched the documentary, that the water everything had completely contaminated each other.
Yeah. It did, and nobody was thinking about that. So, this photo, I don't know if you can really... Gee, was this the first day? I don't... it's hard for me to remember. It probably isn't, because it's not that dirty. But, that mud started to be something.
Yeah, but even on this one, you can see it building up. You can see it's all in way too close proximity to the porta potties.
Where the troughs are, I call them, the troughs, where people are, brushing their teeth and stuff like that. Yeah.
Oh, God.
It was, it was dirty. And so MTV had a tower. They had a spot, and they were actually in front of the big stage where the main stage. And that tower was held down by, and this is an important part that is not mentioned in the documentary. That tower, which you see getting torn down, but there's more to the story. There were these big, huge, I don't know if they were tanks or something like that held the tower. They were up. Those people were up in that tower. The MTV people, they had to leave.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know that. They went off.
Yeah, they evacuated them.
Yeah, they did, because
while they were in the middle of broadcast.
Because they were cutting the lines off the big the things, and that went down into the crowd. That went into the crowd. That's see, I'm getting ahead of myself, but that's what happened during the Red Hot Chili Peppers. And see, they don't talk about that.
Yeah. Yeah, I know they had to evacuate. I didn't realize they cut that thing down.
The tower went into the crowd.
For the love of God.
Yeah. Yeah, it crashed into and that's what really, really made, that's when it happened. That's when it blew up.
Yeah, I remember in that same MTV News report, my mom was in the room, and they threw to a clip that they interviewed some frat boy who was in the mud, the mudsliding extravaganza, and he said something about hey, this is Woodstock. This is about a war between the mud people and the no mud people. And I hear my mom behind me. She wasn't really paying attention. And then she said, actually, Woodstock is not about war of any kind.
No.
Very prescient.
Yeah.
Oh, God. Sorry, my computer just fell asleep.
No, that's all right. Let me look at some of my notes
Oh,
here.
we're still going even.
Yeah.
So we're in the early part of Sunday. So you saw Mickey. You got to see Mickey.
So right before Mickey was the vigil for they started passing out the candles, and that I have photos of.
That was for Columbine?
No, it was for gun control.
Okay.
So one of the things that they mention, and actually this is a photo from the night of Mickey, because we were part of the gun. We went to the vigil for the gun control.
Mm-hmm.
That's some of my staff right there in skirts. That's when men wore skirts because it was really hot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't blame them.
Super nice kids.
They look good.
Oh, they had so much fun. But the vigil was that night, right before Mickey Hart, and so they were starting, and there was like a huge group of us that like kind of like circled, and Johnny had the booth and stuff like that, and so we went out, and they handed us these little white candles. And this is for gun control, and we were to light it up, everybody at the same time, and then we were going to pray for peace. And they had the Hare Krishnas there. I don't know if you know that, but
Yeah.
there was Harry. They were there, and it was actually kind of a solemn. It was kind of a not a solemn moment, but it felt peaceful, and just for that moment.
Yeah.
And I was
a little oasis from what had been going on up to that point.
right. I didn't think about the fence. I was out with some of my crew. We got those candles.
Yeah.
But those candles, and I said this all along, even before the documentary, that was the catalyst for the fires. Because they took all their lighters away when they came in. How did they light them? How did the candles get lit? Well, and if you think about it, those little candles became sticks of dynamite that they threw into the big semis that got blown up later that evening. So this is just the beginning, but we're right here. We're getting these candles, and we're praying. We're going to be okay. It's gun control because Columbine had just happened.
Yeah.
So we were a few months out of Columbine, and the kids were. It was pretty emotional, and then Mickey was all about it too. So it was kind of his thing too, And of course we love Mickey.
Yes.
And so that was that. And we saw, and that's the only really solid show I got to see. And then I went back to the booth because I needed to and kind of check on everybody and stuff. Plus, I was dog tired. So
Yeah, but for a second there, it felt like we made it. We're at the last day. We just had this kind of nice moment where everything kind of chilled for a minute.
It was a calm before the storm.
Yeah. So who was on after Mickey? Was that Chili Peppers?
There must have been somebody in between because Chili Peppers was like the last act, and they were going to do, and actually they said there was going to be a special guest, and we were all trying to figure out who that was. And everybody was saying it was Prince. It might have been.
Yeah.
Who knows? Everybody was like, oh, who's it going to be? So Chili Peppers were going to be last. So I think there was a band in between. Remember they go back and forth. So there was probably, and I honestly don't recollect. I imagine if I pulled the roster, I could see it,
Sure.
But Chili Peppers went on, I think it was around, this is really important. It was probably around 9-ish. They were like the last band, they were 9:30, something like that. And a couple of my girls, my younger girls went, the two young girls that were on my staff, I let them go. So this is important. And I remember walking out to the tarmac at that point, and I remember putting my arms out and looking around, and I'm looking at the fence, and I started walking along the fence. I'm like, and I see the fence is starting to go away. And I'm thinking,
Like rapidly.
Like they had taken more of the fence down during the day. And it's like it was peeled away. The pretty motifs and peace signs are gone now. Fuck you is written everywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, the anger is everywhere. And those food vendors are slinging burritos now for $20 a burrito. And they're charging $12 a bottle for water. And I'm like, and I'm just looking at these guys going, what the fuck? I mean, what are you doing? And, as we're all business people and stuff like that, I would not, I told my kid, my crew, I'm like, we're not going. And we had food. I kept us going. You know, we had coolers. I'm going to give them any business.
Yeah.
So Red Hot Chili Peppers go on. A couple of my girls are gone. I'm like, I'm going to take a break. I'm going to go take a break. I'm going to go in my tent. In my tent, meaning, you know, where I could go lay down.
Right.
And I go in there, and I have a djembe as well. And I brought my djembe with me because that always helped me just kind of chill out and stuff like that. I put my djembe, lay down. I take this off, and I set it next to me. And I'm out for probably a total of a half an hour. And all of a sudden, I hear it. I hear what I think is screaming. I mean, I hear something that doesn't sound right. And Chili Peppers are like, duh. Like, all of a sudden, they're like off. I'm like, wait, what time is it? You know, wait, is it only 10:30? Is it an hour? They're done? And I'm thinking, what happened? So I come out of my tent. I don't have this on. Walk over. And I'm looking at everybody. And other vendors are standing out. And I'm like, and we're looking at each other. And I'm like, what's going on? You know, and we started to hear. And then we started to see the smoke plumes. I'm like, holy shit. They're starting shit on fire. Oh my God.
With pieces of the fence, with garbage.
And you hear screaming. And now you're starting to hear, whoa, you know, you're starting to hear like, it's almost, you know, at a baseball game where, you know, somebody hits a home run. You're like, yeah, you know, like the loudness and then it goes
Right.
away. Like that. That's what it reminded me of. Like, you know, it sounded like that to me. That's the only way I could describe it to you.
Equal parts terror and excitement, too, with people who are like getting into it, encouraging it.
And you don't know what's going on. And then the next thing you know, I got almost like runners coming back, people going, they're coming. And I'm like, they're coming. What the, you know, they're coming. And we're all looking at each other, and we're standing outside our booth, and half my crew's gone. Like, we're so, you know, I'm starting to get like, what's up? And then within probably a few minutes of that, these dudes on golf carts come over and they're like, you guys got to batten down the hatches. You guys need to close up. I'm like, this is an open air market. All we have is tarps. There's no way to protect anything. So I'm starting to go, what am I going to do? All the money I have that I've made for that weekend is on me. You know, I've got thousands of dollars on me, and it's in a backpack. It's on my back. And I'm just starting to think about where everybody is in relation to where I'm at. And some of the vendors are coming out with baseball bats, and we're just kind of, and I'm just like,
When they said they're coming, is it that they had heard amongst all the chaos that a plot is unfolding to go after these people that have price gouged us? And
we're hearing that they're starting to go crazy
because that sentiment was spreading. I remember there was graffiti about it on the wall that was specifying,
yes,
you know.
We were kind of preparing for it. We're like, you know, but when I say like, not kind of, we were all like at our, you know, everybody was like, you're like, you don't know what to think. Like, you could feel it. It was so sorry, fucking scary.
Yeah,
I'm hearing that crowd, and you could feel that anger. And the next thing you know, one of the vendors that was down the road from me said to me, they're starting to come through the back. And I'm like, come through the back. Well, they'd gone to the tent. They'd started the fire on the merch tent to the right of me, and that started to go up. They were trying to start us on fire, and some of the vendors were down there fighting, you know, like pushing these guys off, and then they started coming at us. It was like this black cloud, and I'm standing there, and I'm going, all right, I'm ready. You know, I'm ready. And the guys that work for me are like, no, you're not. And they're like, pick me up. No, you're not. Beer bottles are flying. Next thing you know, screaming, raging, crazy. There's an ATM that was to the right in the back of me. They were like rocking it, trying to get it out of the ground. ATM, screaming it. And I'm like, and I didn't know what to do. And the guys that work for me, two of them, Rob and I forget the other guy's name. They're like, "You're out of here." And they grab me, and I'm like, "Djembe, go get my djembe." Forgot this. And we start running. I see them. I see the crowd coming, and I could hear the screaming and the craziness and all like that, and I could see the fires. And they got me to a place where there was a fence, and that's like where the offices were. And they tried to push me over the fence, and I had a beer bottle like graze the side of my head. And I'm like, and they were like, they wanted to hurt us. We're like,
Yeah.
we're part of the problem now.
Right.
They even say that in the documentary. Now, they shifted from running around the bonfires. They're going after the businesses, us. Yeah.
Fuck.
Yeah. Yeah, but they don't tell you a whole lot about that in the document. It's like, oh yeah, and then the vendors. Well, we were a huge part. We probably financed half that festival with all of us. It's $72,000 a piece.
Yeah.
200 of us. Think about that. So I'm trying to get over this fence, and they're like, "No, you can't come over." And I don't have this on. Remember, I left it in the tent.
Yeah.
She's our fucking butt, and they're like trying to get me over. They wouldn't let me in, so they run me down maybe another like 20 feet and push me over. And I went over and I landed on my back with my djembe. No credential. I don't have this. And I'm like, are they gonna throw me out? And I'm just laying there, and what the fuck?
Having left behind all the product that was
And my
left,
people,
and
and those girls who were like 16 years old, my
who were at Chili Peppers.
I don't know where they are. I'm responsible for them. I talked to their parents before we left. And all I could think, where's everybody? And no cell phone. We don't have phones.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have anything.
Yeah.
And I'm hearing bullhorns, and I'm hearing screaming, and I'm hearing the smoke. And the smoke was like, at that point, and the drumming, the incessant drumming. It was getting louder. It's like it was coming at you.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep.
So they pushed you out. Where did you land? Like, in what part of the environment did you land? Were you still in a considered inside the event, or were you outside of it at this point?
No, I was in. There were offices that were behind us too, like where the hangar was. I like to say where Bootsy Collins and Taj Mahal played.
Uh-huh.
There were offices off the side there, and that's like where they were kind of staged. There was like a group of offices that they had set up for part of the festival. Like
Mm-hmm.
that was one of them anyway.
Yeah.
So that's where my two guys took me, where they brought me.
Uh-huh.
Where they thought I should go. And there was a lot of other people behind that fence at that point too, people that were looking for safety, other vendors, other staff people. There was hundreds of us actually. And I remember looking around and realizing, oh my God, and there was like a line, and they had like phones you could call, because I asked to make a call. It was like it felt like a telethon. It was like 10 phones or something, and I had to wait, and I have to call my mom, I have to call my dad, I have to tell them what happened. But where's my people?
Was there any of the office people in the offices, or had they already split, or they were hunkering down in there?
They were trying to help. Yeah, they were like,
God bless them.
They were there. They were trying to at least help us in some way. I didn't have this, so it kind of was like, nobody said anything at that point. What are you going to do? Throw me back out there?
Yeah.
In that?
Yeah.
But I was just I was bewildered by it. I was like, I couldn't even like process the whole thing. And and the drumming, and the drumming, and the drumming, and the drumming, and then there's helicopters starting to come in.
So they responded pretty quick.
Yeah.
And
I think it was the National Guard. They say it was the what did they say, the state trooper, or what did they say it was? I think there was more than that. There were helicopters. It was like all of a sudden.
Yeah.
And you heard all the radios going off, and you heard the sirens going, and the fire and the screaming. And this is probably at like maybe midnight at that point. So think about it. Like 10:30, I said I kind of woke up. I was like, "What's up?" So now it's like and that's where I'm in the midst of, and now I'm realizing what is going on, and this is going on for hours. And there's radios popping up, and I'm listening to it. And one of the things that I'll never forget, and this is one of the hardest ones, is that they said that somebody that they had set a trailer, one of the trailers on, where they had like the offices, and there was a guy in there, one of the staff members, and they burnt. He was burnt. They set a trailer, and I heard that. I was standing next to him. He said, oh, we just lost one of our own, and I'm standing there, and I'm listening to all this, and I'm like. And then I heard that the tower had crushed 2 women, and they were talking about the 2 women.
The MTV tower?
Yeah, it was 2 women. Yeah. So there was death going on.
Yeah.
And the radios, and again, I'm standing there hearing it. I'm like right there. And I'm told, no, you don't go nowhere. And so I was there till like 6 o'clock in the morning. And I was like holding my drum. I didn't know anybody. I couldn't find anybody I knew. I was by myself. Oh, I did call home. I called my mom, and I was crying.
Mm-hmm.
My mom said she couldn't. That's why I called. So that was. I did get to call my mom. It was like just a couple minutes because there were so many people that needed to get on the phone. And so I called her and told her what was going on. I said, Mom, something happened. I'll be okay.
Had she seen it on the news or anything by that point? Like,
Yeah, it wasn't even on the news yet. It wasn't even on the news yet, so she hadn't seen anything. I don't even know when it got on the news. I'm thinking it was like, it probably, maybe right around there. She hadn't seen it, though. I don't know who saw it. And that was that. That was like that night, and it was the longest night ever in my life that I've ever known. And when we finally got to walk away from it, when they finally released us, you could still hear the drumming, you could still hear the screaming, but they had like pushed them all out. When I say push them out, it's like they had been literally like they had to push this huge, ginormous.
They got pushed back, but they were still. Even at 6 a.m, still going.
Oh, yeah. And the fires were going. And you heard all the trucks and the fire trucks and stuff like that. And I forgot about the explosions. That was the trucks.
Yeah.
You didn't know what that was, though. It sounded like bombs. So I got back to my booth probably around like 7 o'clock in the morning, and I was able to find my people, and we all cried. And
yeah. How did you guys link back up? How?
Everybody found each other. They ran for cover. The young girls. Everybody was just. They were we all found a place to get safe. You know, so a couple of them were behind another area. A couple of them stayed and fought and protected as best they could. But you know, we were knocked down. I mean, things were just gone.
Yeah.
They stole. I mean, it was like. When you see in the video or in the documentary where they're just like taking things and stuff like that, that's the one next to me. That's not me, but I'm right next to it.
Yeah.
And I was next. And they just rampaged, coming through. I remember saying, coming through. So, you just look at what, you know, it's like at that point I had to say, what's more important right now, the people or what I lost?
No question.
So you just divide yourself and you go, okay, you guys are good. And we hugged each other, held each other, and then the other vendors, and we were all like just crying and looking around.
Just can't believe it.
Trying to figure what the fuck just happened to us. What just happened here? Holy shit.
So even with the, you know, the rising tensions that you felt and the red flags and everything that was leading up to it, still never would have prepared you for what it became.
No.
On that Sunday night.
No. It just you couldn't even. I say it was like. It's like the tension that you feel, like them coming at you. Like the villagers coming after Frankenstein with the torches.
Pitchforks and
I use that in when I was talking in my chapters. Yeah. I'm like, that's what you feel like. It's like you're being chased, you know, and the torches are coming, and that's what it felt. And that tension that's coming at you is so. It's like it's unbelievable. It's like tangible almost. You feel it, and it's ugly, and it's hateful. And it's like you're part of the problem. And I remember thinking to myself, they think we did this.
Yeah.
They think we did this.
Yeah.
I didn't do this. And that's what I've always thought. Since, I mean, even, there's other, I could tell you more about the aftermath of all this, but, when you have to start thinking about it, but they thought we were part of the problem. So they're going to fucking take us down too.
Well, so you're 6 o'clock in the morning. You all find each other. I mean, what came next? You weren't going back in for anything, were you? Or
well, we met back at the tent, so we went back to where our booth was. That's like home base. That's like the only thing you know.
Right.
I have a van and our cars are parked like in another area, and I'm thinking, holy, we knew that there had been cars that had been commandeered and blown up and stuff. I'm thinking, do I still have a vehicle?
Yeah.
That's one of the first things I wanted to do once I found crew was safe and all like that, and kind of pick up the pieces. Look at what we have left. What do we have here? We have to take this down. There's a structure. There's like within your booth and tables and all the pieces and parts and all like that, and whatever's left. And I had to look at that with them.
And what was left?
Not a lot. I mean, just things turned over. I have a few boxes of things left and stuff like that, but if I was to put a value on things, I lost about $70,000. Yep. Yep. So I was, and I knew it. So, I didn't make a lot, like I said. Let's forget about that. But now I've lost everything. Gone. So we put it all back together. There's tubs. We put it back, and we're talking about what we're feeling. I mean, I remember it was just a very emotional time. And then there was one of my vendor friends. I remember her name was Erica. They did glass and stuff like that. She came over with a big, notepad, and she says, "We're going to do a class action against these motherfuckers. Woodstock LLC. Did you buy insurance, Gia?" I'm like, "I did." She goes, "They owe us." So we wrote our names down on the pad. And I'm thinking, oh, well, maybe I'll salvage here something. I don't know. I was supposed to be protected.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I did. So I put my name on that thing. We packed up. We basically, I remember that's when crew started to go their own way. A couple of them stayed with me. We were going to go to Widespread Panic shows at Rosenthal. I don't even know why I did that, but I was trying to find some kind of like, well, let's go do something.
Yeah.
I was going to plan a couple days of that, and then, start heading back home, and there was a fest I was going to head on the way back, which I did. But, I paid my staff. Some of them handed me back the money. They're like, dude, no, there was hugs. Again, all of us didn't know one another that well, except we did through that situation, and there was that camaraderie, but after that, I didn't see him again. You know what I mean? It was like, it wasn't like bad or anything. It's just like we kind of just disconnected. I think we all were really just disillusioned.
Yeah.
It changed everything. It changed everything.
And some of them were first-time vendors, right? So this is the first thing they go to, and this happens.
They see this.
It's so fucked up.
So you got like my guilt and everything. So I had all that on my shoulders, and the young girls that I had to watch over who got home okay. But it was like I had all this weight on me, and forget about the financial. It's like Jesus Christ. What about them?
Yeah.
I walked around after that. After they kind of like this, there was a couple of us left. Like I said, we were gonna do New York City and head over there. We had rooms already set up and stuff, showers, and that's when I walked the perimeter And that's when I took the photos. And that's when I saw what was left of the fence. And I saw the semis, which were blown to bits. And I took I don't know if you saw the photos, close up picture. This is what I saw. And there's 12 of them, and they do talk about this in the documentary. But this is kind of like the litmus test. Like, this is in the middle of everything, and this is where all the gas tanks are for the pop, for the Coke and all like that.
Oh.
And so if you can imagine that being hit by those little sticks of dynamite, remember the peace vigil?
Yeah.
That's what happened. Where did those candles go? That's where they went.
Oh my God.
Here's the tent next to me. The one that you see in the documentary where they're ripping it apart and they burnt it down. That was right next to me. Yeah.
Very rarely speechless.
So I went from that place and left there. My name on the notepad. Okay, I'm gonna get some help here. Went to those shows, like I said. I mean, I remember just being. This doesn't even feel good. Like nothing felt good at that point. And I ended up going to I had a couple people with me, and we ended up going into Michigan. My van and one car. And it was a wee fest. It was like a reggae fest. And a friend of mine had told me about it. And I got to that festival, and I was burning up. Are we done time-wise? I don't know.
No, we're good.
I got to that fest, and I was burning up. I must have had like 102 temperature. And I'll never forget when I got there, these neighbors of mine had a little boy, and they had a little baby pool. And I was setting up, and they introduced themselves to me, Dave and Diane Bruton. They're still dear friends of mine to this day. This is what came out of Woodstock 99. So I got to meet this wonderful family. And I remember Diane saying, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "No, I'm all right. I just came out of that show," and blah, blah. She feels my head. She goes, "I'm going to have to put your feet in Hunter's baby pool. He's going to cool you off. You look like you don't feel good." And I sat down. I sat in that, and I met them when I got there and setting up, and they helped me set up and with my crew and stuff like that. But I was sick. I mean, at that point, I was really sick. And I don't know if it was trench mouth. I don't know if it was that. 'Cause remember, we didn't drink that water.
Right.
But I went through a couple days at that fest and drove home, making these new wonderful friends that are still my friends to this day. Thank you. And I got home, and I got pulled into I lived at 5454 Byron, so I was like Irving and Central, and I pulled my van, and my mom was waiting for me. I had called her from a payphone, and she was waiting for me. And I remember when I opened up the door, I literally fell out of the door into my mom's arms. So that's how I came home. And so anyway, that was like my coming home. And I was sick. I had pneumonia. I was really sick. I ended up going,
Just overexhaustion and, maybe the elements at Woodstock and...
Yep. So I was on a bus a couple weeks later, and I had a car and everything, and I drove, but I had to go somewhere and took the bus. And I remember the bus driver somebody stopped in front of him, and he honked the horn really fast, like there was kind of a little bit of an altercation. And I got like where I literally got off I couldn't take it. I didn't know. It was like something just I got off the bus. I'm like, altercation, and I was completely, like, I had lost so much. Like, I couldn't even deal with anything. I was so, messed up from it.
Yeah.
And I got back into life, and I will tell you that with the lawyer thing, what I started to realize is that they put a big wall up around New York, You didn't hear anything about it. To this day, I'll tell people, yeah, I was at Woodstock. No, I didn't hear about that. Because they paid people off. They had to. That documentary came out. He passed away, I think, right before it came out.
Yeah.
I think he paid off the lawyer. I think he paid off the lawyer I had. We had a class action suit. There was a bunch of us that were going to sue him because we had the insurance, and we lost thousands of dollars. We got dropped. And I remember the lawyer saying to me, his name was Michael Nyguen. He told me, he was a New York lawyer. He said, get in line. There were 245 rapes. 245 rapes that they were processing at that point, and there were 7 deaths. 7. The 2 girls I was telling you, the guy that was burned up in the trailer, the girl that was run over, there was another guy that OD'd. I think I'm probably underestimating it, but they never said that in the documentary, who got, So there was that. So we were like, vendors, be gone. And 4 years later, I was at, or 5 years later, I was at an event in Minnesota. It was the 10,000 Lakes event, and I saw some of the vendors who I hadn't seen in years. And at that point, I was married. I had my first child. I was like, kind of settled and stuff like that. So I was in 2005. And I started, I hadn't seen some of these guys since then. And I said, why don't we meet back at my tent tonight and have a powwow? We haven't talked about any of this stuff. We hadn't seen each other. These are people from California.
Yeah.
These are friends of mine. But we kind of everybody kind of just dissipated. It was kind of like we just turned our heads away from it. And we all met in my booth after hours.
How long was this after?
6 years.
So did you have to ease back into vending again and kind of get your mojo back for it?
Well, remember I came home and I worked for Blotto. So I was kind of that was kind of a big savior for me, because that was like instant awesome beautifulness.
Yeah.
Thank you for that, Did I do shows afterwards? I did some. But, I had other ideas and plans at that time, and I'd met my soon-to-be husband right soon after there at the time. And so, I guess I hadn't really thought about it. Didn't do anything of that grand a scale ever, still to this day. But I remember meeting with those vendors, and there was probably about 6 of us. And we all sat there and looked at each other, and we cried, and we held hands. And these are people, like I said, from all over the country, and we had our story. I said, I haven't talked to anybody. Have you? Have you? Have you? Have you? Have you? And we all said the same thing. What happened to us? And we all felt it was just the worst. But at least we had each other. At least we found each other again. It was like the one moment that I felt at least unified again for 1 second with some of my team, the people that had been there. And then I saw a couple of people that worked for me. They were from DePaul. They were college students, most of these kids that worked with me. And they saw me at a show one night working for Blotto. I was out at Rock Around the Block or something like that. And they saw me and came over, and we had hugs. So that's about the extent of my aftermath of it. And I kept it under I haven't talked about it until now.
Yeah.
This is the first time. And I remember somebody told me at one point, your story is so good. Why don't you go to Rolling Stone? Why don't you do something with it? I'm like, I had buried it.
Yeah.
It was so, you couldn't, how?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, like I said earlier, it's like most people never would even be close to something like that. And I think that's probably why you had that moment once you saw those vendors again, because there are very few people who can relate to what you went through.
Yep. Yeah. Nobody from Woodstock LLC ever got in touch. We had nothing. It was like, you're gone. Bye-bye.
And the lawyer, the temerity of them too. I assume the implication was, well, your losses, the damage to you was only financial.
Right.
And as anybody who's been listening to this can tell, that is not the fucking case.
Mm-mm. No.
God, that's infuriating. And it poisons the whole idea of Woodstock to me.
festivals changed after that, and so did tours. Like, you didn't see any more Lollapalooza tour, you didn't see any more Horde tour, you didn't see any more Lola tour. Everything changed. I don't know if you realize at that point, everything changed.
Yeah. Those things all just became one weekend things instead of tours, and they were pretty much entirely shamelessly corporate,
Yep,
right? I mean,
they were.
and not trying to hide it the way Woodstock did.
Right. So everything changed. It changed the whole dynamic of music festivals, everything. I mean, what once was this lovely, beautiful, and there's still your homegrown fest, let's face it. There's still some really, really cool festivals. I would never say, but anything at that level, not anymore.
Yeah.
Not anymore. And I would never set my foot in one of those ever again. Not after what happened to me. No way. Nope. So thank you for letting me tell my story.
Thank you for telling it. It's absolutely mind-blowing. Really, like, I'm so glad you made it out. I'm so glad that you... Oh my God, I can't even think. I'm just like totally... What did you think when you heard that they were thinking about doing it in 2019?
Oh, I was like, I remember I think somebody announced it on Facebook, and I was like, what?
Bands even started announcing that they were on it. Dead and Company was going to be on it. Like, they fully, like, it was about to go. Like, it was...
I knew that in '99 actually, because at the time when my friend was walking around with that notepad with her, she said, he's going to do another one in 20 years. I remember she said that to me, and I go, oh my God. Like, there was already talk of it then, that they had heard about that. So rumor was that he was going to do one, Michael Lang doing one in 2019. I'm like, oh my fucking, really? Come on. What?
Yeah.
And of course it came, you saw it. And I looked back somehow recently. I was kind of, I you can pick things out of Facebook, and there was some chatter about it. There was like there was some kind of, they were talking about having it, and then all of a sudden it kind of went away.
Yeah.
What happened?
It went away in very weird, quick circumstances. Like,
what happened?
it was on, then it was off. I don't know. What do you think?
What do I think? I think that somebody said, I think, who knows? How could you, what, do you think people wouldn't remember?
Yeah.
That's what I said. I'm like, what, do you think we don't remember?
Yeah.
I thought there's a generation of people that won't know about this.
Mm-hmm.
There really is. There's two. Generations are every 7 years. Make that 3. It's like, they're not going to know, right?
Yeah.
That's probably what he figured. I bet you enough people made I know I did. I mean, whatever noise I could make.
Yeah.
I was like pissed, for sure. How can you do that?
Yeah.
What are you
The
doing?
audacity.
Yeah. So the documentary just was that I'm just going to go back to that really quickly. When it came out, like I had to watch it in parts.
Yeah.
It wasn't something I could just like, okay, I'm going to watch it. No, I had to turn it up. Watch, turn up. Kind of like, really?
Yeah.
No, don't, and get mad.
Right.
And I don't want my kids around. I told my kids, don't watch this with me. And I watched it with one of my friends, and she saw how upset I got. I go, don't watch this with me. So, and then my mom watched it, and my mom's like, they're assholes. My 8-year-old mom. Look, that one MTV lady. She's like, what is she? And she's like, they all had refrigerated, trailers.
Yeah.
Look at, and they did. They were all treated like royalty. The rest
Right.
of us were like cattle, So.
Oh my God. Assholes is right.
Yeah.
Well, I hope you do, go to Rolling Stone one day. I hope your book is written. I hope there's a documentary from your perspective. Because Gia, I just can't believe it. I can't believe everything you just told me. I mean, and the problem is I entirely believe it too.
Yeah. It was a moment in time, and I always say I left home on July 19th one way, and I came home somebody else. It just changed everything. Yeah. Hmm.
Well, like I said, I'm glad you're here, and glad you got back to it, and that you made it, and your team made it.
Yeah, made it.
It was a dark day for music. You know, it was a dark day for, you know, so many things that we hold sacred to become something completely different.
You just can't wrap your head around how it could happen.
Yeah.
You know. You know, all the things that I thought, and I do know that I think I had some things right about it. And meeting with my vendor friends 6 years later, we did touch on these things, that they cut corners, the food, the water, all like that, and that they didn't look. It wasn't about a concert going experience. It was about making money.
Yeah.
You know, and we were a big part of the revenue, you know, as a vendor, and they didn't give a shit about us. So, I mean, we could feel sorry for ourselves all day long, but what's worse is what it did to the music festival. It ruined it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, it did. Yep.
Do you think there's anything or anyone that could bring it back? Not obviously not Woodstock, but that magnitude of a festival. Do you think culture, whatever you want to call it, has changed so much that at this point is impossible, because out of that many people, you're bound to have enough trouble that it would be unmanageable?
Yeah, I don't think that it's something that can be realized again. Nothing of that magnitude. No. I think I've always said, it's like an idea. Woodstock was an idea, and it was an idea in 1969, and it became what it was. And it, you know, from what we know, and I wasn't there, but I've always thought it was beautiful, and, you know, it was an idea.
Yeah.
You know, Woodstock 94 was crazy. It was an idea, but it still held its own. It still didn't get violent. It still, the fence was knocked down.
Mm-hmm.
I remember the fence getting knocked down. I was there when it got knocked down. But it's like, and it was muddy,
Mm-hmm.
but nobody got sick. And you don't hear any of this.
Yeah.
When I'm telling you, nobody died.
Right.
I mean, maybe if there was an OD or something like that. So there wasn't any of that. No, I don't think so. I don't think you can. I think what happened in 1969 should be left alone.
Yeah.
It was what it was. You can't make that again.
Right.
It can't be that again. It was a different time. It was a different, you know, the way things were, the Vietnam War, you know, all the things that we were dealing with at the time, socially, feminism, you know, racism, things we still deal with.
Right.
But there were so many components to that festival being what it was, and it turned out beautiful. There was Altamont, which wasn't so beautiful, like
Mm-hmm.
right after that, but nothing could be like that again. There is no such thing. There just isn't. There won't be.
Yeah.
Mm-mm. Nope.
Must be for the best then.
I think so.
Well, thank you again. This was, just got to say it again, I'm blown away. It's surreal, but I'm so glad you're here, and I'm so glad I know you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for
sure.
coming.
Yep. Happy to be here. Thank you.
So yeah, thanks for listening. Thank you to Gia Caroline Eppolito. You are amazing. You are so strong and so well spoken. Thank you for sharing your story with all of us. Normally at the end of the show, I talk about my upcoming shows and stuff. I'm not going to do that this time. I just want to say thank you for listening, and thank you to Gia Caroline Eppolito. You can look her up on Facebook. And also, she has started a group called Trainwreck /Woodstock 99 discussion on Facebook. You You can see some of the pictures that Gia was describing in our conversation, as well as read her writings, which are equally beautiful and detailed. And I guess that's it. Until next time, be nice to each other, behave yourselves, and I'll see you down the road.